Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Blink Podcast. Today, a very important topic with a very important guest. It's all about mindset in the current market. We're feeling the pressure. We're feeling the tension in the market. And today, we're going to give you instructional steps you can take to make your life not only easier, but for you to perform at a higher level. And before I get into it, here's the opener. Of course, welcome. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Darren Pratley from across the ditch, my infamous co-host, famous co-host, just about to wreck the world co-host, and of course, a show favourite. I think he's had the most appearances on Blink. John Shackleton, human performance expert, mindset expert, and just one of the all-round great guys in the industry that we love to get back. And Darren and I were having a chat the other week, weren't we, mate, about just what is the mood of the feedback that we're getting from people? What are they telling us? What are they saying? And overwhelmingly, it is overwhelm. And we just thought that today, well, why not get the master of eliminating such things as John Shackleton, get him on the show, help out some people, and have a chat about it. Give them some instructions.
I'm feeling overwhelmed, boys. Come on, help me out here. The pressure of doing this podcast.
The pressure's on. The pressure's on. But I think this is the thing, right? And at the moment, Jonathan, you and I had that conversation, and we sort of were, in the trainings and the work that we're doing, teams around the countries, respectively, is like we're all feeling this, right? We're all feeling the sense of this is challenging, this is difficult, this is different, and it's having a real effect on people's state in terms of how they're feeling, but also their approach to the work that they're doing. And I think this topic for me today is just critically important to be able to get people to sort of have some conversations. And John, you are an absolute fantastic person. You've done a lot of sports psych work. You have worked in a lot of the industries that Jonathan and I work in as well. And, when we start talking to you about, hey, this is what we're seeing, you just sit there and you nod your head and you go, yep, I get it. We've seen it. And this is a bit normal. So it's really good to have you with us today, mate.
No worries. A lot of similarities between business and sport.
Yeah,
because you can't in sport. You can't control the pressure. You can't control. All you can control is yourself. If you're on the start line of the Olympic Games and you've trained for the last 8 years for this, if you can't control yourself, you're stuffed. And you can't control anybody else or the environment you're in. The only thing you've got to handle is you. And that's what it must feel like in business for a lot of people these days, that, they're struggling because they're trying to control the environment.
Yeah, that's fascinating in the fact that I talk to my kids about this all the time. They're obviously in a high-performance sport environment at a young age, and there's going to be bad games. There's going to be days where you make mistakes. You're not always going to win. And I think, my youngest in particular, she's probably had the greatest exposure to it. She's okay with feedback and criticism from coaches, but if a teammate gives it to her, oh my God, it hurts so much more. And so I suppose that would sort of happen in work environments too, particularly the spaces that you and I work in, Darren, automotive, finance, real estate. It's so competitive amongst workmates. I've got a lot of clients that, their focus all the time when all they need to do is focus on themselves, they're coming to me and saying, oh, John's got more listings, or George has sold more than me, GCI. And I suppose what we want to try and explore today is how can we give them the tools to manage that moment when they're drifting or distracted or feeling sick in the guts about what someone else is doing, when really what they need to do is focus that energy back on themselves in order to be the one that everyone else looks at.
in sport, it's when your competitors are trying to psych you out, you're bloody good. Because why would they try and psych somebody out? Why would they try and interrupt your mental processes if you were an also ran? So when somebody tries to get at you mentally in sport, that you're scaring them. That's why they're doing it. And that should give you a lift. What it means is you're good enough to scare them. And in sales, it's exactly the same, isn't it? If somebody is making the time to try and push you down, what that means is they're scared of you. They're understanding that you're getting things going. That should be a lift for you personally.
It's a great approach. Yeah, very good.
Difficult to work, I know, but actually it's the right way of doing it, isn't it?
Yeah, but my youngest, had training last night, got in the car, burst into tears, and it was a training, and she never does. Like she's brutal, and the fact was that there was a particular teammate who, I think they're probably 1 and 2 in the same team, but she was copying a hard time. She was copying corrections. This person was telling me to do this, telling me to do that, and I think for Lizzie, she's like, well, I actually think I'm in front, so why would I listen to you? And is that where we're going now? We've always got that stoic quote that is, don't take advice from people you wouldn't listen to the opinions of, or something. What is that quote? I don't know. I've mauled it. I don't know. I know what it is.
No, don't take advice from anybody who's not already ahead of you. I mean, it's simple, isn't it? Why would we listen to somebody who, in our opinion, is not going where we're going, has not already been there, is not producing what we want? It's like, Darren, would you listen to me in terms of walking? Well, you'd be bloody stupid if you did, because what do I know about it? Nothing. And you're in middle of training. So why would you listen to somebody who has no knowledge?
But it's easy. It's easy to say. It's easy to bring out these quotes, and I love a good quote as much as anyone. But it's easy to say. It's harder to catch in reality.
Yeah, but hold on a second. You also think about the environment we've been through. So you think about where we've been in the last 5 years. We have been in an environment where, especially if you're in a sales environment and many of those industries we work in, they had an absolute dream run over that period of time. Everybody had an opinion, everybody had an idea, and do you know what? Most of the time, it wouldn't have mattered what the idea was. They still got the result. It still worked, right? And also on the back of that, I actually didn't have to critique too hard about what I'm doing myself, because anything that I kind of do is creating me the result. So the market environment gave us a whole lot of opportunity. We put our arms out and swept up as much of it as we could, and we felt like we really did a great job. Now we enter into a current environment where economy's down. The consumer is watching every dollar that they have. They're very much more now determined about actually getting good value for the dollars that they spend, and they're more conscious about who they're spending it with. So now there's a whole value conversation which starts to affect our sales results, because if we're not doing a great job and not really doing the work, we're not going to get a level of success. And as soon as that success level changes, all of these voices start popping up in your heads, right? About exactly, who am I listening to? Who's giving me the right information? Who's giving me the direction that I need? And that has such a massive effect on your mental well-being. And that's why today, in terms of this topic, I am just so pleased we're doing this right now, because I'm at the moment seeing this week in, week out of people that, 3 years ago were absolute sales rock stars, and right now are struggling to even meet what I would call bare average performance. And that is having a real effect on their mental state.
I'm sure it is. You come back very quickly to the thing that these people, the voices in your ears, the people giving you their opinion. You probably noticed in sport that very often the athletes have no idea what's going on in the world. They don't watch the news. They don't listen to social media. They don't take people's opinions other than their coach. They're not interested in any of that because that's all noise. It's all going to distract them from what they want to do. So they haven't got a clue what's going on in the world other than their training. And I believe in business, we've got to do the same. We've got to chuck out social media and we've got to chuck out listening to all the crap that's going on in the world because all of that affects our mood.
Let's not chuck out social media too fast. Let's just learn how to do it properly. And
I know we're in the middle of it with it.
I know how to do that, but
yes. That's where people, it doesn't take any effort to have an opinion on social media. It doesn't take any special talent. Everybody's got a bloody opinion on social media. And to be honest with you, 95% of it's rubbish.
Yeah, I think that was really important. Darren, you and I did a lot of episodes like this during COVID. And I remember one of the themes we spoke about was just turn off the news. Turn off talk radio, turn off the news. And, you know, when I speak to people now who are having, say, early signs of anxiety or overwhelm or struggling, I think the first thing I say to them is go to bed early, wake up early and go for a walk before you eat anything or a run. Do some sort of exercise that gets your heart rate over 140, 150 beats per minute. You've got to go at least 75%. But turn off the news. Don't take your headphones and listen to talkback radio. And don't go searching news.com.au for what's going on in the world because it will really not have that big an effect on you. Now, if World War III breaks out or the banks go broke or whatever it is or the government gets overthrown, you'll hear about it.
Yeah.
You'll hear about it. But until that, you don't have to worry about all 99% of all the other things going on in the world. I mean, we've got protests here every day at the moment for Palestine. No problems. But, they're running into buildings and trying to chase, hunt out people out of the apartments who have been throwing eggs on them. And it's violence and it's throwing chairs and it's police. And when you look at it, it's quite shocking and disturbing what's going on in the streets. But, I'm 12 Ks from the city, sitting in my house. I wouldn't know what was going on unless I looked at the news. Yep. And if I'm already stressed about work, if you're sitting at home listening to this or you're on your walk, listen to a podcast, listen to something you're going to learn and grow from. If you're listening to this now and you're already feeling overwhelmed at work, you don't need any of these other extra stimuli to tip you over the edge because what it does is just, I believe, and John, you can add to this, does it just add to the existing overwhelm? Like, is it just another stimulus to what's already maybe something you've got controlled? Maybe you're at this level at your neck and then the news just tips it over and once you tip over, it boils up? Like, how does it work?
And you're saying exactly the right thing. Stress seems to be cumulative. So you've got the stress of your job and you've got the stress of your marriage and you've got the stress of your finances and it just builds on top and it takes one time. You've heard of the straw that broke the camel's back. That's it. People lose it because it's not because of what my daughter said to me. That was just the last straw. That's the final bit. We've got all of this crap piled on top of each other. And what we're trying to do, if we switch off the news, and I have done for the last probably 6 months, I have it on the TV. I have it on silent. So I don't hear any of the rubbish. I just wait for the sports stuff to come round. So it's on the TV because I've used to having it on the TV. I'm often reading my book and just looking, oh, no, it's not the sports stuff yet. But it's just adding crap to the crap you're already making inside your head. We already make enough negative movies up here all the time anyway. Why let the news add to all of that? No, I think it's a complete waste of time. Total waste of time. And I would also say, and I know I'm probably bucking the trend here, but I would also say that social media can have a very negative effect on us in exactly the same way.
Yeah, I 100%. And I think it does affect you a bit differently. I think the triggers are different. And this is my read on social media. If you're already overwhelmed and struggling, social media is a place where you'll go and get news because it's in the feed.
Yeah.
But the other thing you'll get FOMO or keeping up with the Joneses or being outperformed by someone else. And Darren, you and I spoke about this on the phone the other day. Don't be fooled. Don't be fooled by the shop window. There's no money in the till. All right, and well, we're not going to name who it was, but that's you can paint a false reality on social media, which you can use to your advantage to put yourself up as being more successful. But it's the effect on third parties that I think we're only just starting to get our understanding of in social media world. It's the effect.
It's called lying. Let's be honest about it. People lie about.
Yeah, that's right. They lie about their existence. But I think what the experts and the universities are now starting to uncover is what's the effect on the wider community.
On everybody else, yeah.
If medium baseline used to be in the 80s here, a family with a 3-bedroom house in a medium price suburb, and now you've got kids straight out of university who are faking that they're driving, a Porsche, living in an inner city suburb and traveling the globe when really they're not. And look, add AI into that. This is only going to explode. You could grab your face and put it on any body in the world, anywhere in the world. So, we need to get back to this. I think the expectation over reality lifestyle is what's really happening out there.
So this is the piece for me, right? So you guys, what you're saying is, I think, is 100% correct, because that's having an effect across everybody. But this is the thing for me. What I'm seeing is that I've got a whole lot of people that are starting to be mad. I mean, they're angry. They have high levels of anxiety. And also the other one for me, and John, this is one we've had a chat about, is tired. I'm tired. And I think what you two have just absolutely outlined is, and when we talk about some of the tools that we can probably have a think about using in our lives to try and being able to overcome some of this stuff, I think what we've got to be really conscious of is where we're consuming all of this information from. And John, you said TV, Jonathan, you obviously social media, and we're thinking about nowadays all the different ways that we can consume content. And I think what I'm seeing is, with all of that, plethora of options out there, that it really is creating a feeling in people that they are mad, or they're angry, or they're really uptight about what's going on in different parts of the world, because it is so much more in our face right now. So for me, I just really notice that sense of that anxiety level now in a lot of people. And when you add business success or business performance or sales, over the top of that, boy, oh boy, it really does create a mindset environment that's pretty dangerous.
What if we took the 2 hours a day that people spend consuming that external information, and we said, right, I'm going to use that 2 hours a day, not in that environment. I'm going to use it in a different way. I'm going to spend that 2 hours a day on my physical and mental health only. I'm not going to do any business in that 2 hours, but I'm going to exercise. I'm going to read something, or listening to some educational process, or I'm going to meditate, or what if we spent that 2 hours that we normally throw away on the newspaper, reading the newspaper, or watching the TV, or on social media, and we actually focus that on our health? What would happen to the individual if they did that? It would be a dramatic change, wouldn't it?
It'd probably ease those 4 things, wouldn't it? It would probably ease.
I think it would solve the problem. Okay, not instantly, but it would solve the problem within a week. Within 1 week, somebody is A, fitter, B, they've got a better diet, they're healthier, everything's going their way, plus they haven't been taking in all that crap. Just imagine 2 hours per day, and it is that much, at least that much on social media. If you look at the numbers, if you just eliminate that and take in the health stuff, what would be the eventual change in the individual if they did that every day?
Yeah.
Okay,
so massive.
I agree. Let's get into the granular of it. I think we're all agreeing that you need to clean up your lives in a number of different areas. So we're talking sleep, we're talking diet, we're talking exercise, we're talking mental health. Darren,
absolutely.
You wrote a bit of a list in our 5-minute pre-production meeting prior to this episode. Where do you want to start? You choose.
Number one for me is start choosing exactly where you get your content from. That's for me is number one. Is you have to actually start being purposeful and take control. If you just let the environment environment that we're in right now provide you your motivation or your insights or your news or your pastime content, if you let the marketplace choose that stuff for you, 9 times out of 10 it'll be crap, it'll be negative, and it'll be stuff that will create.
And it'll be lies. It'll be those lies we've been talking about. It'll be people telling you how great their life is, and it's not. It's just as shit as our life. And you're dead right. Choosing that content, it's like when you're driving. Why are you listening to anything other than somebody's great motivational book that you like? Why are you spending that time listening to music? That's not going to help. Although it will relax you, it's certainly not going to give you any education. So I've got like half a dozen books on in my phone that I listen to, and I know, that one I don't like that one at the moment, I'll listen to this one. And that's all I do when I drive. Is I'm not even conscious that I'm taking the information in. It's just going in by drip and drab. That's so. What
do you do, Jonathan? What do you do, mate? Where do you get yours from?
Me? I'm a digital native in a way.
Yeah.
I get a lot of mine off social media, because I work here at home. I'm not in an office space, so I don't really interact with a lot of people. Yeah, I'm very careful of who I interact with in a social environment.
Right.
If there's people who trigger me,
it's a choice, as Darren says, it's a choice, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think all information is a choice. And I think in your workplace, if there's someone who makes you feel sick in the guts because you think they're doing a better job or have a better life or whatever, cut them out. Avoid them. There's no rules saying that you have to sit around the boardroom table with them. Find someone else, go somewhere else. It's almost schoolyard stuff. If the teachers used to say, if that person annoys you, go somewhere else. But I think vetting your information of who and what you get is really important. It's almost like cleaning a diet. You're cleaning up your information diet. Yep. And I'll guarantee you that, they used to say it all the time, bad news brings money. And so if the algorithms are all about attention and retention, then it's going to be more bad and sad than good. They'll try and leave you happy. If they think you're going to leave, they'll try and drag you back in with something happy. But it's exactly that. The more bad news you watch, the more bad reports you listen to or read about, the more you're filling yourself up to that level, which is going to lead to overflow. And when you overflow, you've got to put yourself back together.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with choosing the people that you choose. You need to understand what their motivation is. If you can understand what's motivating them to say this stuff, if they say this stuff, is it controversial? Are they therefore saying it just to get more clicks, make more money themselves? Are they saying it for that reason? Or are they saying, if they're already a successful person, what's their motivation for giving me this information? Oh, maybe it's to help. And that's how I choose my influencers. Are they actually trying to help, or are they trying to line their own nest? So the people I listen to are the ones who are already successful. Not the ones who...
As a whole new sport. I was just going to say, it's a whole new sport in itself, being able to define or unravel what the agendas of each are. I mean, we get flooded with so many, I'll help you make $1 million in 7 days type operators who then tell origin stories about, I started here and I went and did this, this, and this. And, sometimes it's hard to separate fact from fiction in these scenarios.
I was at an event a few years ago, and a speaker spent an hour of my time telling me what a great life he had, and his motorbike and his car and his house and where he lived and all of that rubbish. And at the end of it, I went backstage and had a chat with him because I was introduced to him. And it turns out that he didn't own any of that stuff. He rented it all. So in other words, he hadn't had any success in his life. He was just living off debt, basically. But he was explaining to the audience how he'd accumulated all these great things by doing X, Y, and Z. It was pure lies.
Okay.
Absolutely. And this is a very well-respected and well-known speaker, by the way, an international speaker.
Right, I'm just going to be the challenge to some of this, because I think one of the things you've also got to be careful of is that you don't start justifying your own narrative. Because sometimes what you can do is you can start justifying all of the things you do because you're really happy with where things are at and you're doing a great job because I know what I'm saying is right. And sometimes when you get that external view and I'm not saying that person, John, that you're talking about is what I'm referencing, but what sometimes you need some people externally to challenge the status quo, and that
Pick
actually
them
sometimes
very carefully, though. Pick
yeah,
them very
I agree. But if you're going to be developing and growing and really improving your environment, sometimes you can't believe your own narrative because, I see salespeople all the time. They're going to keep telling me that Darren, you don't need to do this. You don't need to do this. I was selling 6 houses a week, Darren, 4 years ago, and I never made a phone call. So why do I need to make phone calls now? Because I didn't before. And I'm like, yeah, but if I'm going to let you play with that narrative that you know what you're talking about and you've got it sorted, then don't complain with the result you're getting, because sometimes you need that external challenge to get you to stop, think, and change.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. I just think it's really important that we've put into perspective what is the person's reason for telling me this information? What are they getting out of me learning this information? What's their motivation for giving me?
What does it do for you taking that information in? Like, what are the insights? What are the things that I can take from that? That I'm not going to take all your story. I'm not going to believe it all. But is there 1 or 2 things in there that I can take and apply to my environment that actually makes me better who I am and authentically better?
I don't think you'll be able to do that, Judge, if you're under massive stress.
True.
That's the job. You won't be able to make that judgment about which bits are good and which bits are bad. So I think the choice of the influencer is really important because people are under massive stress at the moment.
Yeah.
So choosing the influence is probably more important than trying to sieve the good and bad information from the influencer. So I would suggest identify 2 or 3 people that you really know and like. And through my years and years and years, I've been through probably 10 different serious influencers. Robbins, at one point, Anthony Robbins was a very big influencer on my information. And I've moved past that and I've gone on to other people. But again, Robbins was a squillionaire when I came across him. So I understand that the fact that I bought one of his books or whatever is not going to have a great deal of change on his environment. So I was looking at it from what is it that's motivating this guy to explain it to me. And I moved on from that. I moved into other people, and I was in, but the choice of the influencer, I think I give everybody the chance. But I'm very fussy about who I listen to these days. And by the way, that person I was talking about, Darren, you know him quite well.
Yeah, totally.
You probably know who I'm talking about.
Hold on, we're just criticising tabloid news media. Let's not turn this into a tabloid of someone's character. Now, so I think what we've all come to an agreement of is you've got to vet the channels of information that are coming your way. But I think we're also all in agreement that there is pain out there. There is overwhelm and discomfort. And Darren, I hear the conversation that you quoted all the time. 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I was number one. I'm murdering it. I just need to keep doing more of what I was doing back then. No, sorry, the world has changed. And guess what? You don't have the power within you to change the world back. So you either need to adjust to succeed, or you're out the back door, or you're going to just keep staying where you are. And I think there's a great line around motivation of once the discomfort of where you're sitting gets greater than the discomfort of what it is you're not wanting to do to change your position, that's when you'll affect real change. And Darren, I think you're a big believer in that too, is that, you know what? And I've found the moment, Darren, you said 5 years ago, and when you think back, yes, COVID really started to hit. It was 5 years ago. And people are still bringing it up as, COVID. No, we're done now. We're moving on. We're on the edge of, I don't want to catastrophize it because this isn't the episode, but I think that's the thing. COVID was such a big change to their lives that now I sense that there's change resistance in people. I'm one of them. I suffer it. There's change resistance, and I think it's because they had an overload of change in a short period of time. It was drastic. But you know what? It's move on now. What do you reckon people did? What do you reckon our grandparents did during the Depression? What do you reckon our grandparents did during World War II? What do you reckon happened when, in America, when they kept losing presidents to assassins? There's always...
We are in such a fantastic place, aren't we? I mean, we live in paradise. And actually, I don't know about you guys, but it's not like I'm scraping around for $1. I don't mean I'm wealthy. It's just that, I don't worry about my children, what they're going to eat today. So I think we're in a fantastic place. It's just that the world is telling us that the world is shit at the moment. I had some, what are they called? Jehovah's Witnesses knock on my door. Now, Darren, you've been to my place. That's a tough gig because I live a long way from anywhere. And they came and knocked on my door and said, the world is dreadful. And I said to them, I'm sorry, my love, I don't mean to interrupt you, but actually the world's not dreadful. I quite like the world at the moment. Yeah. Yeah. She was really painting a dreadful picture and suggesting that the solution was religion. I'm not being rude about what her solution was, because for some people that is a great...
But that's marketing.
Yeah. Very good marketing.
Religions are the greatest marketers on the planet.
Absolutely. That's where professional speaking started, was these great religious leaders. Yeah.
Bad news brings action. What's number 2 on your list, Darren? Let's move into that.
Number 2 is start looking at the long term. And I think there's the backside of this. So one is start looking at the long term and realizing, so, we often talk in the real estate industry, there's a 7 or an 8 year cycle. So there's a cycle of years that goes up and down, right? So actually start looking at this environment as a cycle and just realizing that it will be different tomorrow. 100% it'll be better or different tomorrow. And you've just got to realize that just by understanding that there is that sense of change, start looking at that longer term position more.
I think that's right.
I think one of the things, if your stress is a financial, which I can imagine a lot of people are struggling with it from that perspective at the moment, then when times are good, you need to have a situation that will take care of when times are bad. Because if there is a cycle, you've got to understand that, if you earn 50,000 this year, but you earned 250,000 last year, why haven't you put 100 grand away for the bad times? Because there are going to be bad times. And that's, again, in sport, that's what happens. The sports people know that they go through ups and downs. They're on form or they're not on form. And they're doing everything they can to bring their form into alignment with their process. But they can't control it. It'd be really nice if we could.
I've got 2 takes on
this word, but there's a lot of luck involved in this, in success, isn't there?
Yeah, I've got 2 takes on this. I think at the moment, and it is cyclical, there's no doubt about it. I think we're in a harvesting period, not a build new farms period, and that is going to slow things down. When you're in a building new farms, building a bigger production unit, you can bring in more work, more money, more transactions. But I also think the other scenario that we need to look at is happiness equals expectations over reality. It's almost a formula that I live by. And the reality at the moment is that the world is, with cost of living, contracting, discretionary spending for a certain portion of the communities, both in New Zealand and Australia, are being smarter with their money. They're worried about the future, and so that affects everybody. So I think the teams that you and I work with, Darren, they just need to look at, how do I get the bare minimum that I need to survive? I don't need to set records. And in time, the market's going to is going to change, and I would have worked on my systems and processes in this period so that when time comes good, I can amplify the return and do even better than what I did in the gold rush 3 or 4 years ago. And I think they need to look at growth in other ways, or measure growth in other ways than just money and GCIs and month-by-month performances. And I think from a leadership point of view too, I think the bosses of these companies need to get smarter about how they manage their herds in regards to those realizations of what's going on in the world. Because if the leadership's demanding record months in a market that isn't congruent to setting records, then they're just amping up the pressure, they're just amping up the anxiety. And John, you'll tell us, someone suffering anxiety and depression isn't really going to perform at their best because their brain is wasting so much energy on simply trying to survive.
Absolutely.
So I think it's a complex...
Our job as a psych in sport is to remove stress, basically. It's because the individual will not perform if they're under stress. And in fact, they're much more likely to fall off the cliff as well if they're under stress. So our job is because the event itself puts so much stress on them that we have to remove every other part of stress. So that's, if you put that into business, if somebody's struggling in their marriage, if they've got really bad health, if they're financially stuffed, that's 3 large lumps of stress that they can do something about. And funnily enough, those 3 there, almost all of us in tough times put money number 1, and yet the most important thing we can actually do, which will have an effect on everything else we do, is our health. That's the one we should always have as number 1. Our health should always be number 1. If it's not number 1, then you won't have a relationship and you won't have the ability to make money.
Okay, so let me be the controversy in the middle of the room again. I've got a lot of businesses out there that aren't even making not even making $1. Like when you say he's setting record profits, I'm seeing a lot of businesses just struggling to make zero. And this is the piece for me is I'm looking around the place going, okay, so we've got to get this to zero to be here tomorrow when the market changes, right? So we've got to get back to zero. Mm-hmm. What I'm doing is I'm looking around going, hold on, where the hell is everybody? Like, because I want to be kind. I want to look after you. I want to make sure everything's okay and that you've got enough mental space to be able to make sure that you're feeling that your washing's done and that the kitchen's tidy and, I'm working from home and it's all going great. But then you've got a whole lot of business owners sitting there right now going, based on this work environment that has evolved over the last 5 years, we're in a situation right now that how the hell do we make this thing fly?
Yeah. It's tough times.
Yeah, but I think transparency and leadership comes into that. And I think the secret to it is action. A lot of times when people suffer anxiety, overwhelm and depression, they get stuck in inaction and they don't know which direction to go. So what they do is they retreat to the safe space because they're so fearful of making a mistake, they do nothing. Now, I've been there. And you sit there and you're busy, but you do actually nothing that moves you forward. And it's only once you can get control of these feelings and this stress, you start sleeping well, you start eating well, you stop listening to irrelevant noise that triggers you. Once you can do that, then I think the next step we have to do is what's an action that you can take that isn't going to overwhelm you just thinking about doing it. Now, that's on your list, Darren.
Think of it from the sports angle. Think of it from the sports angle. If you had an athlete, let's take a swimmer, because I know a lot about swimming. If you take a swimmer and they say, right, well, I've got 4 years to the next Olympic cycle, but I'm going to take the first 3 years off and do nothing, and then I'll start training in 3 years' time. Are you going to put your money on that person? No. So they have bad times. They go through shit times. They go through times when they can't even qualify for national championships. But what they do is they understand that I got to go training every day. It's not like I get to choose whether I go the next 6. No, I go every day. Whether the times are good or whether the times are bad, I still go. That comes back to Darren's line with the bloody phone calls, isn't it? You just keep making phone calls.
Yeah, but John, I'm not comfortable with getting in the pool today. I just
then
feel
get out and bugger off. Don't waste my time.
Oh, we changed tone then, didn't we?
But that's the case. If life is uncomfortable, Welcome to the world. That's the way life is. It is uncomfortable. It is tough. And it's with the phone calls. Listen up, there's a caveat on what I've just said. When I said get out the pool, don't waste my time. If you were really struggling on the edge of things right now, I wouldn't be that hard, because I might push you over because your stress is tough. But in reality, the truth of the matter is, if you're not making the phone calls, whether you're actually selling houses or cars, if you're not making the phone calls, you're not getting better at the process. You're getting worse. So if I think that you're struggling right now and you're on the edge and the stress is too much for you, I might not be as hard as I just was. Mm-hmm. But the truth of the matter is, you ain't going to get better at making the phone calls unless you make the phone calls.
Yeah, I think the strategy here, or the point that I was trying to make, is that yes, have vision on the long term, have a vision on the long term goals, but then break things down into small actionable steps. So I was watching a great video. I think it's by a guy called the UK's most hated sales trainer. It's a fantastic YouTube channel. He's a lawyer who just has gone straight into cold call training, and he does it with British pomp and irreverence. It's amazing. And he comes across this all the time, people not wanting to take the calls. Now, if we look at the markets, Darren, that we've been working with, they didn't have to make the calls in real estate or cars. Like, you couldn't get enough cars into New Zealand and Australia during COVID because everyone had money because they couldn't go on holiday. So they thought, we'll buy a new car because at least we can sit in our locked up houses and look at this nice car in the driveway. They couldn't get enough. They were selling themselves. Now we're in an environment where the sales teams actually have to take action, and they're like, oh no, my job was much better when I didn't have to actually do the work. I didn't have to actually do sales. People just walked in the door and I said, what color do you want? And it happened. This guy does a great thing. 20 sales calls a week. You sit on a Sunday night or a Monday morning, maybe you wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning in bed and you're sweating because you're like, oh damn, I've got to ring 20 strangers today. Oh my God, they're not going to like me. They're not going to want to take the calls. When are they going to want me to call them? When's the best time? You're going to come up with every excuse in your mind not to make the calls. He changes it. He says, let's make it a game. We all love games growing up. Let's make it a game where you've blocked out an hour and a half of your day, say 8:30 till 10, and all you've got to do is make enough calls to speak to 4 ideal clients. And it doesn't matter how those conversations go. You just have to have relevant conversations with 4 clients. And when you get the 4, you stop, you move on, you do whatever else you need to do on your day.
It's exactly what the sports people do. They go down the pool, whether it's raining or whether it's cold or whether it's warm. They don't give a shit. They don't care who's in the lane next to them. They don't care. They just do what needs to be done. It doesn't matter whether they're fast or they're slow. They do it every single day. And that's the whole point. You get good at something when you do it a lot. That's why the Beatles became quite good musicians, because they were playing 8-hour sets 7 days a week when they were in Hamburg. They weren't great when they started, but by practicing that much, you get good at it, don't you? And the challenge for people, you're dead right, Darren, in the times when times are great and you don't have to make the calls, you get to the point where you're not very good. And you lose all your confidence. And really, all you need to do is take a leaf from the athlete's book. And even when times are tough, they still go down the pool.
But I think that those micro actions, if we call them that, the smaller actions, actually open up the gateway and remove the fear and the unknown and the overwhelm to bigger action.
Do. Yeah.
The only way to be becoming active again is to take, what do they say? The Buddha says it, take the first step. Right.
The journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step, and I think that's true. And it's making
audio. Here we
go. What do you think, Yoda? Let's go.
So see, this is where I get challenged, right? Because you said just then, I'll just make 4 calls, right? I'll just make 4, and then I say 10.
No, it's not 4 calls.
It's you might have to make 100 calls to get
many
4
calls as it takes to have the 4 conversations, because
4 conversations. Okay, 4 calls, 4 connects, whatever it is, right? So
Yes.
I say you've got to do 10 calls, 10 connects per day, right? And then I've got some trainers that say you need, like in Australia right now, there's a real trend that you've got to do 100 calls in a day. So they're employing people to sit in an office and make 100 phone calls in a day. One of my top salespeople that I work with right now in her business, we've got a person doing 60 calls a day in terms of making calls to client bases. Now, all I'm doing here is shifting the number, right? All I've done here is just shifted the number from 4 to 10 to 60 to 100. But actually, the fundamental part of this is just realizing that as part of a salesperson's job or part of a business's job is to have a sales environment that generates the revenue. And what do we expect the sales department to do? 1, generate conversations with people we don't know. 2, understand when we do know them what their needs could be, and then develop an understanding why our product best suits their need. That's the sales department's job, right? And this is the part where I go over the last 5 years, because of the behaviors we've been led down the path of, is the customer selected the product, the customer drove the momentum, the customer put everything in front of the salesperson, and they went, oh, great, this is taking orders. Well, actually, to be honest, we didn't need sales departments over the last 5 years.
No.
We needed someone in admin to take the orders.
Here's the amazing thing, right? Over the last 20 years since I've lived in New Zealand, I must have bought 6 cars, and I haven't had a single phone call from any of the people that sold me.
Don't start me on this, John.
Not
Don't
one phone call. Not one phone call saying, hey, how's that
Don't
car
start
going?
me. Don't start me.
Not a single one. So they're not salespeople at all. They're order takers. If they were salespeople, they'd be phoning me and saying, John, you've had that car for 2 years now. How's it going? That's all. And they've got my details. They know my phone number. They've got my email address.
So one of the things with the sales department that we use, one of the things that have, like, it's just it starts to really irritate me, because I go, with a sales department, sales department used to have a thing called resilience, where you made offers, proposals, and customers would say no, and you'd be disappointed, and then guess what? You'd get up the next day and go and do it again, because that's what sales is. It's not you get 100%. In fact, you might need to make 50 calls to get one opportunity. But at the end of the day, that's what it needs. And I see right now with this whole environment we've got, and I'll just say it, because I actually think that some of this environment now has got very soft. Please be kind. Please look after my mental health. Please protect me. In fact, I haven't done much by trying to protect you. In fact, what I needed you to do is actually to learn the skills and develop to be able to cope with an environment like now. Because I don't know about you, but I find this environment challenging, and I'd say I'm pretty skilled at this stuff, right? Yeah. But I know that it's got to be resilient. You've got to make your calls. You've got to get up tomorrow when the person says, sorry, we're not doing it. You've got to be prepared to front up again. And I just think we've got away from that mindset. And that's why, when we talked about this topic today, I just was like, man, this is so appropriate to where we are.
Think about those who aren't struggling right now. I mean, they're probably struggling financially because the environment is bad. But let's think about the people who've got themselves a little bit organized, so they had a bit of a buffer financially, and they're still making the calls, but they're finding the environment as tough as everybody else, but they're still taking the action. If they're doing that right now, who is going to be the first person to reap the rewards of a change? And who, when that change comes and the environment looks good, who's going to be the person that's going to be leading the pack at that point? It's the one that is doing the work now. Because I know it's tough and I know it's difficult, but the person that's struggling, that goes through the big struggles, will always be the leader of the pack next time. And it's really interesting. The deeper you fall, the higher you rebound if you've got resilience. And I know that you take any of the superstars in the sporting world, and they've been through more pain and more negativity than the people anybody else, none of them just get to the top and stay there. They've all been through extremely tough situations. There's a guy in swimming now, a British breaststroker, who has been the number one in the world for years and years and years, and then he dropped out. He had real mental health issues and he dropped out. And he's just started to come back. And I know he's going to get a medal at the next Olympics, despite the fact that because he's been so low, he's been in such a bad place that it's made a change in his life and he's blossomed.
But I want to make a point here. If you're living in Australia and New Zealand, you got a car and you got a house, and you got food on the table and food in the fridge, life ain't that bad.
We live in paradise, mate.
It's the expectations of what people think life should be for them. And that's actually the root cause of all of this. It's the feeling of, I'm here, but I think I should be here. And all the environmental factors that feed into that is causing the overwhelm and the discomfort. I've got a lovely old couple that live in my street. They virtually have nothing. They got caught with a bad business deal in the 90s. They virtually lost a lot, but they are the happiest people in the street. Now, I sit there and go, I don't think I could live the way you live and be that happy. They've adjusted to their environment, and I think we've got people in business that need to adjust to the current environment. There are so many worse places around the world. You think selling real estate in Melbourne is hard at the moment? Go and try and sell real estate in the Gaza Strip.
Yeah.
Let's not make light of it. But it's hard. You try and sell real estate in the Ukraine. You try and go and sell real estate in the middle of Africa. Like, these places, if we look at the world, the fact that you're even listening to this or watching this on a digital device that costs you $60 to $100 a month to keep operating, you are in the wealthy top 10, 5% of people in the world. Okay? It's your expectations that is causing the churn. Adjust your radar. Adjust your reality and get to work.
This is why mindfulness is so powerful. Because what it does, it drives you into the now. It allows you to see what is happening right now is your reality. It allows you to see what you've just described, Jonathan. If you become a more mindful person, then your mind isn't in the future or in the past. It's not saying, what will life be like, or my life, what it's saying, how lovely, look at that tree. How wonderful it is, this meal I've just eaten. How great it is that my kids have these opportunities in front of them. So mindfulness actually drives you into the present moment, which is why it's actually the solution to a lot of our woes. It really is. A lot of the solution to it.
Okay. So
no, it's not a practical, give me a 1, 2, 3 process that you like, Darren, but it is incredibly powerful from that perspective. It just lets you see that what you've got is wonderful.
So I truly believe that, right? Because what we've got to do every now and again is just take a moment to go actually put it into perspective. Where am I at? Where am I? But I am also somebody that goes, and I think that idea of looking at the longer term. So, what is the longer term journey that you want, and what do you for your life want that representation to be, and that's what you work towards. Because as long as the end game is hitting you or as long as the activity is hitting you towards the end game, then I think you've got to be satisfied with what you're heading in a direction that you want to go. But I just see at the moment a lot of people haven't defined where they want to go, and there are lots of options of where they could go, and because of that just is another layer of anxiety about, I could go over here. And Jonathan, you know this as well as I do, mate. Like, we look at all these speakers and we look at real estate agents and we look at all these different people that have got so many great options available to them right in front of their hands, and they can just get stuck sitting there because they actually haven't decided on ultimately what they want. And John, you're a bugger, because you often say to me, what's the end game? So what is your end game? And I think the piece for me is one of the key tools out of today is just getting a much clearer picture on what you want for your future, and start getting your plan towards that, because I think that clears a lot of the noise and a lot of the options that are on the table but actually don't head you anywhere near where you want to go.
I think you're absolutely right. It's clear idea about which direction you're headed. I think I've changed my mind a lot about goals in the last few years because the world seems to be changing so quickly. I can set goals that are not relevant. I can set a goal for 2 years' time now, and in 2 years' time, it's completely irrelevant. It was a stupid thing to do. So the way I look at it nowadays is I'm aiming at something. What is it? What's the future look like? Not exactly specifically accurately. It's roughly, what does it look like, and what do I need to have in place for myself in order to be going in that direction? And that's so this is I'm working on a compass, not a map these days. So I've got a compass. I know I'm going in the right direction, but I might not know which road I'm going to go down. So I'm much more flexible, and every time I do that process, guess what comes up number one for me? I mean, I know I'm a lot older than you guys, but what comes up number one for me every single time is I got to get my health right. If I don't get my health, mental and physical health right, then it doesn't matter which direction I think I'm going in. It's irrelevant. I've got to get that right first. Mental and physical health has to be my number one process. Not everything I do, but it has to be the most important thing.
Yeah.
I think they're great points. I think we're coming to the end of this episode. There's so much information in there. I think there's a few realities that have come out of this. Is A, if you're in a first world country like Australia and New Zealand, there are ways to make money. And I think there's another scenario there too, is that there is so much noise out there that it's so easy to be distracted. And I'm someone who's been there. I caught myself, I think, Darren, you straightened me out on this, where I was meeting a lot of real estate agents and they're all like, Jonathan, you should become an auctioneer. You should become an auctioneer. And I was like, Darren, I think I'm going to take up a side hustle as an auctioneer. Oh, yeah, I reckon you'd be great at it. But, at what cost to your main goal? Like, where is it in the path? And I had a conversation with a mentor the other day, and we were talking about doing this, and different business ideas. And he just looked at me and goes, "It's too late. It's too late for me, and it's too late for you. You already set your path. You're right on the edge. It's booming. Just keep going on that path. It's too late." So I think you've got to have a reality check around where you are. And then, as we said, don't get overwhelmed by the future. It's good to have a future plan. It's good to have a compass on where you want to go, but don't make the mountain too big. Just look at the next steps. Just look at what you can do between now and the end of the week, or now and the end of the day. Break it down, and within 6 months, you'll change your life.
Don't make the mountain too big, Darren.
Now, for those who are listening,
Darren, relevant for you.
Yeah, Darren. For some people, may or may not know this, but Darren next week is off to base camp Mount Everest, and we're going to try and do an episode.
The mountain much bigger than that.
So he's going to Everest. He's going to base camp. An incredible life's journey, and really an appropriate symbol of what this whole episode's about. You don't have to run up Mount Everest tomorrow. You work towards it.
Yeah, totally. And as I say, that this has been on a bucket list for me for 30 years. So this is a 30-year goal that I set a long time ago, and it's an opportunity for me to be able to do a lot of things that are appropriate for me in my life and where I'm at, and to be able to experience not just getting to the destination, but enjoying the journey, as a wise master once told me, is really important that we do that, right? Is just to take these challenges on from time to time, and I'm pretty excited about it. So thanks, guys, for that, and we'll keep in the loop with travels as we go.
Sweet. Hope you have a good journey.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I think you should diarise it. I think if you've got,
I wonder what you're going to say then.
You're actually, I don't know where your mind is, John Shackleton, but I think if you could record some videos along the way of your mindset and how it changes you, I'm sure there's going to be some tough hiking days in there. There's going to be some bad weather. There's going to be a reduced access to hair care products. There's going to be all these things that are going to challenge you greatly, Darren. And I'd love to see your mindset. And I think I know that's a joke, I apologize. But I think if you were to look back in 10 years' time and you could watch videos of what you were thinking and how you were thinking during this journey, I did something similar when I went across the Kokoda track a few years ago, and I look back at some of those videos, and it's staggering. I look at myself and go, gee, you were a little bit thoughtful and smart. So I would keep it as a record, not only for you, but for your kids and your grandkids in the future to see how it changes you. I think we should document that.
That's a cool idea, mate. Sounds great. I'm onto it. Very good.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching the Blink podcast. John Shackleton, thanks for sharing your wisdom once again. It's been an incredibly insightful and entertaining hour. Again, we're going to try and get as many of these episodes out as we can, guys. If you've got any problems, of course, send them through. Darren and I want to tackle them. We want to help you almost one-to-one, because if you're experiencing these issues, you won't be the only one. And if we can help you solve those, that's the whole aim of this podcast. It's about finding those business lessons and sharing the knowledge, and that's what we do. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you're listening to us across all the podcast platforms, don't forget to give us a rating. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, share the link, do all the things that help get this message out. Across social media, it's not all bad out there. Sometimes you find shows like these that can help you in your day-to-day life. And so we thank you for that, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
See you, everyone. Take care.